start with AOC talking about the Republicans. All of a sudden they want unity. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Honestly, this is just, it's stunning. But let's play AOC talking about this, setting basically the bar for what it's going to take for unity. I mean, well, let's hear her explanation. I have a separate theory on what it's going to take for unity.
And, you know, the several Republican members of Congress who opposed raising objections to certifying the Electoral College vote have written a letter to President-elect Biden opposing impeachment. Here's what the letter says. It says, in the spirit of healing and fidelity to our Constitution, we ask that you formally request that Speaker Nancy Pelosi discontinue her efforts to impeach President Donald J. Trump a second time. A second impeachment only days before President Trump will leave office is as unnecessary as it is inflammatory. They're saying for the sake of unity, forego impeachment.
Well, you know, I think there's a couple of things. One is we have to understand that what happened on Wednesday was insurrection against the United States. That is what Donald J. Trump engaged in, and that is what those who stormed the Capitol engaged in. And so when we talk about healing, the process of healing is separate and, in fact, requires accountability. And so if we allow insurrection against the United States with impunity, with no accountability, we are inviting it to happen again. That is how serious it is. And I do not believe that perhaps my colleagues weren't in that room. Perhaps my colleagues were not fully present for the events on Wednesday, but we came close to half of the House nearly dying on Wednesday. And if another head of state came in and ordered an attack on the United States Congress, would we say that should not be prosecuted? Would we say that there should be absolutely no response to that? No. It is an act of insurrection. It's an act of hostility. And we must have accountability because without it, it will happen again.
What is also interesting to me about this is that, like, the idea that these Republican senators who voted to certify the election, right? It's like, I want credit. I mean, this is literally like, you know, your 8-year-old kid going like, you know, coming up and going like, I want credit for, you know, taking a poop today. Like, I'm sorry. You're just going to do that. But it's also, they are accepting the premise that this was a Republican Party project, not just like a narrow group of people, but this was a Republican Party project. So if there's going to be unity, don't hold these people to account because too much of them are what they did is associated with too much of our party for it to be sort of a distinct project. And so, I mean, that's pretty telling. And just the idea that, like, let this slide. Are you kidding me? It's insane.
I know. Well, I mean, we have a history of letting lawlessness like this slide. I mean, we did not sufficiently go after the criminals in Watergate in the name of national unity. Reconstruction was part of that effort, was
Iran-Contra,
national unity, right? And then what do you know? We got Jim Crow. And like, have we not learned from our constant capitulation to the people who are assaulting the supposed democracy that we live in? Have we not learned about the consequences of not holding them to account because we keep getting worse? We went from Nixon, we went to Reagan, we went to Bush, we went to Trump, and like the illegality gets even more ridiculous, not to mention democratic illegality. So like, there has to be some sort of reflection, which progressives are providing, as to what are the consequences of our not doing anything about this. I mean, and then my point is that there are Democrats who are siding with this Republican view and like are
there anymore though? I don't think so. I mean, even Chris Coons was talking about like ejecting Hawley and Cruz from the Senate. Now, and that's an interesting dynamic because, you know, you got Joe Biden.
You're right.
Joe Biden's coming out there and saying, like, you know, we need a Republican Party, but his guy Coons is in the Senate saying something else. I mean, that is not Chris Coons is not freelancing here. I mean, this is a bit of a pincer move, but I also want to make the point that, like, I think that you can draw a line between Mitch McConnell refusing to have hearings on Merrick Garland and this type of behavior. Like, it's just each time you expand what is acceptable in the context of our politics, you're expanding it. And the idea that you would not have accountability for this, for the people who encourage this, it is impossible to imagine that it wouldn't happen again. It's still very possible that this is going to happen again. I mean, this is the way this happens, right? It takes another 5-10 years, starts to brew, and something like this happens.
And they're already doing trial runs. And sorry, Jamie, just quick point. They're already doing trial runs of overthrowing democracy in state legislatures, like in Pennsylvania. I mean, the Republican Party is going to look at this because we have lawmakers who are siding with Trump on this, and it's going to be copycatted. They're an authoritarian party, and they follow what the leader does, and this is going to happen again. So exactly why you need accountability.
It's going to be, I was just going to say it's going to be a lot sooner than 5 to 10 years, I think, because, the Republicans lost the election. They tried to steal it through legal means, through the courts, and that didn't work. And now we have a branch of this movement that's going to try to steal elections through extra legal means in the streets. So that represents a further progression, a further step in that chain, even as this party becomes fractured between the different elements. And they're even, having a little lovers quarrel with the cops right now, which is kind of nice to watch. But I mean, I'm of two minds listening to AOC here, because obviously it is a bad idea to be like, oh, we just need to turn the page and have unity. It's giving me flashbacks to Iraq, and all the horrible people in the Bush administration who were never prosecuted for war crimes. Like, if we're going to have laws, which, for the moment we do, you might as well use them against right-wing ghouls who want to take this country in an even more fascist direction. But of course, the thing that I think was bad about the Capitol insurrection was not that it was an insurrection, not that it broke the laws, because actually those things could be good wielded in the proper context. It's that it was a right-wing fascist white nationalist movement.
I have a problem with, at least in the context of, I guess I can imagine a scenario in the future where we have a different form of government and something like that would be appropriate. But in the context of the way that our government is structured right now, I just don't think there is any scenario. I mean, if tomorrow, or if, let's say, I don't know, a year ago or 2 years ago, when it was Republican dominated House and Senate and Republican president, I would not have been in favor of a leftist group of people doing that. I mean,
I wouldn't be in favor of it either, because it just isn't going to work at this point in time.
Yeah, I also think, like,
and 5 people died too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I don't think you should be.
It's dangerous. It's ineffective. There's a lot of different reasons why I wouldn't want my people doing that.
You're not going to get any kind of democratic, revolution coming from handcuffing people with zip ties, I don't think.
Or I'll say this, without the social base for it, it's just a pointless temper tantrum, right? I don't advocate the communist left to be coming in and doing stuff like this right now for a lot of different reasons. And I want to make that very clear. But, if we had a base for proletarian revolution, like, sorry, it's an inconvenient truth, but we fought one civil war to end slavery, and I think it's going to take another one to really finish the job of Reconstruction.
I mean, if that base existed theoretically in this country, you wouldn't need that. And
that too.
And it would have to be a much different government, that in which case you would have that type of base and would need that in my,
it's true. Like the primary work is base building work. And the more people get on board, the less violence there's bound to be. But, you know, a lot of these people are very invested in whiteness. They're very invested in capitalism. They're very invested in the system. And we saw that very clearly, and they're not going to go quietly.